Hey, what's up, YouTube? It's John again. My camera battery is almost dead. I guess I forgot to charge it. I have extra batteries, but I didn't bring them, so that's useless. So this might last for the whole vlog. If you're watching it now, then it did. So the topic I wanted to bring up today is bike size. Now, once in a while I'll get a comment about, my bikes, especially because folks will ask me, what's a good size bike to start with? And, I always tell folks that it's not a hard and fast rule. A lot of folks will tell you that you have to start out on a 250cc motorcycle. And, if you're a smaller rider, that's good conventional wisdom. But things change over time, and motorcycles have improved since 250 was kind of the way to get started, and that was back when 750 was big. And sometimes a 250 isn't a great starter bike, especially if you're a taller rider or a bigger rider, someone who is going to have trouble handling a bike that small. So, but in the course of those comments, once in a while, someone will suggest the opposite. Not that maybe you're starting on too small of a bike, but maybe that some bikes are just too big in general, right? This is a 1700cc bike. That's 104 cubic inches. Harley-Davidson, there's a former Harley-Davidson building that's torn down there, or fell down in a storm. Harley-Davidson has their 103 cubic inch, or about like 1680cc engine. That's their main line, but they go all the way up to 110 cubic inches on certain models. So bikes are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Kawasaki has a 2000cc bike, and of course sport bikes have plateaued at 1400cc's for a while, but they're pushing 200 horsepower on some models of these 1400cc bikes. So how big is too big, and why do you need a bigger bike? And well, that's the topic for today's video. So I'll start with me. The main reason I got a bike this big, a 1700, actually has to do with long distance riding comfort. Right here I'm doing just shy of 60 miles an hour. I'm not even in top gear, and I'm barely breaking 2,000 RPMs. On a much smaller bike, you're turning a lot faster RPMs. In a moment here, we're going to get up here on the interstate, and we're going to show you what it's like to kind of ride on a large touring motorcycle on the interstate, and kind of the differences between that and a smaller bike. On a smaller bike, you get vibrations from high engine RPMs, you get blown around in the wind, you have buffeting from the high speeds, and it's doable. I mean, I did it on a 900, which is, well, bigger than what a lot of folks are riding, but it's small in the cruiser world. And, a 900 is probably like equivalent of like a 650cc twin-cylinder sport bike, right? It's kind of in that intermediate range. So I did it just fine, and I put 40,000 miles on it, and although I don't prefer the interstate, I'll close this so we don't get so much wind. Although I don't prefer the interstate, I did quite a bit of it, just to get to places quicker. Now, if you can hear it, I'm not sure if you can or not, but I'm getting a lot of this kind of buffeting and turbulence from behind this truck, but it's not actually affecting the bike. It's hitting me, but it's not affecting the bike. And note that we're almost 70 miles an hour now at like 2,400 RPMs. Much lower RPMs, much smoother, much easier ride in general. It's easier on the bike, it's easier on you, and it's just a nice, smooth, comfortable ride. But the weight actually comes in handy. So the weight comes in handy because the heavy bike, it's almost 1,000 pounds. It isn't blown around by these trucks. It isn't affected by the trucks. It isn't blown around by crosswinds across the highway. Ooh, I'm going a lot faster than I meant to, passing that truck. So we'll back down here to a reasonable cruising speed. I do have cruise control. You set that here, and then boom, we're doing 73 on the interstate here. So kind of the question becomes, how big of a bike should I get? And like anything, whether it's your first bike or your most recent bike or your 100th bike, you have to evaluate your needs and what you want it for. If you're a brand new rider, something this size is not a good idea. And the reason something this size is not a good idea is because there's a lot of weight at low speeds, and that's where a lot of motorcyclists have a lot of problems. There's a lot of weight that can cause problems in a parking lot if you aren't comfortable using the clutch. And truth be told, even if you're an experienced rider, if you can't handle maneuvering the bike without using your feet at low speeds, then you're going to have a really hard time with a bike this size. You need a level of proficiency and a level of confidence too. Confidence plays a big role in riding a big bike. It's just the confidence to ride and understand and handle the machine. As far as how big you should start with, well, that's kind of a different topic, isn't it? So a lot of folks, again, suggest this idea that 250s are what you should start with, but I'm 6'2". That's not going to happen. I tried to ride a set 250, Kawasaki Ninja 250, And this was when I was, didn't know anything about motorcycles, and I just hopped on it and rode it, and I did okay. But it was so hard to shift. I couldn't use the rear brake at all because I was so tightly cramped up on this little bike. Now, I've since ridden a much larger bike, including a Kawasaki ZX14, which is a much more comfortable ride. Of course, that's got a lot of power, and the danger there isn't so much the weight like a big cruiser. The danger there is just the sheer amount of power, and if you weren't proficient with a clutch and throttle action, then you're going to find yourself in a lot of trouble really quick on something that big. Now, one thing to understand is that conventional wisdom often comes from sport bike riders and folks who are riding much more powerful machines in terms of horsepower and high RPM power. There's some debris on the road here. A 900cc cruiser is nowhere near that of a leader bike, a 1000cc sport bike. Man, there's a lot of debris on the road. This, by the way, is where it's helpful to ride in the tire tracks of cars in front of you, because if they swerve to miss something and you're in the middle, you're going to hit it. If you follow their tire tracks, you're less likely to skid it. Of course, keeping a long following distance and looking ahead of the cars in front of you is important too. So don't listen to folks who tell you that you absolutely cannot start on something like a 750 or a 900cc cruiser. Kawasaki's smallest bike that they currently sell is a Kawasaki Vulcan 900, which, if you're a taller rider and can fit the bike well and can flat foot it and are strong enough in your lower body to handle the weight at low speeds, because as you're starting out, you are going to have opportunities where you're going to have to catch the bike with your feet and that kind of thing. If that's you, then you definitely should consider the 900 from Kawasaki or the 950 from Yamaha or the other sub-1000cc cruisers that are great first bikes, because not only are they good for a brand new rider, but they're also great for an experienced rider, and they can actually do something. You can tour, you can cruise, you can do whatever it is you want with them, and they aren't super limited. My 900 was not this stable and smooth on the interstate, and it ran at much higher RPMs, around 4,000 RPMs. But it was comfortable enough, and it handled the road a lot better than a lot smaller bikes. Now, a couple things to note while I'm throwing it out there: if you're younger, anything over 1,000 cc's with most insurance companies is going to give you a hit, especially sport bikes. Sport bikes over 1,000 cc's, if you're under 25, talk to your insurance company before you even consider it, because it's going to get pricey, and cruisers are the same way. Now, my insurance actually stayed the same going from the 900 to this, and that's because my insurance company considers the Vaquero a touring motorcycle, which they should. It is. And they give a discount for touring motorcycles, just because touring motorcycles statistically are in less accidents, and that's all insurance companies are about, is accidents. And touring motorcycles are probably be in less accidents because they're ridden by more experienced riders and they're not ridden aggressively. You don't see a lot of guys you do see it, but you don't see it often, a guy in a full bagger like this, drag racing down the highway. I mean, it does happen, but, let's be real. I don't necessarily think that means that the bikes are actually safer, although a bike like this does have much bigger brakes, along with features like anti-lock brakes and a better suspension than much smaller cruisers. So that's kind of my topic for today. I didn't have a long vlog planned, but I just kind of wanted to get your opinion. What's your thoughts? Do you think that folks should start on very small motorcycles, or do you think it's okay to start on much larger motorcycles? And is there really a limit, or should it be more individual? In my opinion, there is no CC limit. I would avoid 1,000 cc's or above for insurance reasons if you don't have an MSF certification, or if you don't have experience riding, because your insurance is going to be expensive. And I would definitely avoid very big bikes, maybe above 1,300 cc's or so. But again, that all is very subjective. There are some bikes that are 1,700 cc's that are much lighter than this one. And my 900 was pretty heavy by the time I put all the stuff I had on it. So maybe the criteria should be more a bike that fits you really well, that you can flat foot, that you can handle well, that you can pick up and lean side to side on the ground and not feel like you're going to drop it. And one that has not too much power that's going to really get you in trouble. Like a Vulcan 2000, for example, has a lot of power. The 1700 has a lot of torque and a lot of horsepower, but it kind of comes in middle, late power band, and it's pretty manageable. It's a very manageable power band, which makes it a comfortable ride and makes it not too easy to get away from you. So I'm going to get off the interstate here because, frankly, I find the interstate ridiculously boring. We'll tap on the brake, shut off cruise control, and I'm going to do some riding. And in the meantime, you guys can do some commenting. All right, guys, I'll talk to you later. As always, God bless. Bye-bye.